Misinformation is so hugely dangerous. I don't even know where to begin. There are so many agents of chaos who want to confuse us, deceive us, and just wreak havoc for seemingly no purpose other than just to perpetuate a system of anarchy where we become so unsure of what's real, we don't know if we can believe what we are seeing with our own eyes. Actually, I think that is the actual purpose. It is exhausting. It is so dangerous. And I have some serious choice words for the way that the internet aids the dissemination of disinformation. Kids, students, adults, journalists, politicians, and yes, even podcast hosts. Everyone now more than ever needs effective internet literacy. We got so used to relying on the internet as our main source of news that it has become so difficult, so difficult to understand that not everything online is real. You would think that we would have understood that after the 100th pop up ad we got for a special tea that somehow both cleans out your colon and also makes your toenails shiny. That cannot be real. Wait, maybe I'm the only one getting that ad. I don't know. Look, the internet is one of our most vital, very important tool, but it is fair to say that we are losing the thread, people. There is absolutely no shame in admitting that we need to get reacquainted with it. We need a refresher on how to use this powerful tool, this increasingly powerful tool. At the very least, journalists and everyday people need to know how to decipher what they see on it. Journalists need to learn how to differentiate between real photos and fake photos, authentic videos, deep fakes, and the news consumer needs to understand that just because a news organization puts something out or they see it on whatever Twitter is called when this episode is released, it doesn't mean it's real. Always verify. Verification is critical. We need to be able to safely trust the internet. We can't just ask Jeeves every time we have a question. That guy doesn't work here anymore. This is Choice Words. I'm Samantha Bee. My guest today is as thoughtful as she is funny and talented, and that is a lot. I adore Rachel Bloom. We talked about the need for better internet literacy and how to live our best lives online. You know and love her musical comedy, and she has a new live show, Death Let Me Do My Show, that you can see in New York this winter, and you really should. And if you need to see something live before then, you can find out if I'm coming to a city near you on SamanthaBee.com with my live show, Your Favorite Woman. In the meantime, take a listen and make good choices. Well, thank you for being on this podcast. I want to talk about the subject of choice because that is kind of like that's our gateway into this podcast. And so I want to know from you, I want to talk about the big choices that you've made, the little choices, things that have made a difference in your life. But are you good at making choices? Like, are you good at big decisions? Is that something you embrace, or what is your approach?
I think some of the things that maybe other people might consider choices are more no-brainers for me. And that's more just career-y stuff, or even marrying my husband. That was just such a no-brainer, right? There was no
Right.
We'd been together for so long, and I love him, and he's the guy, and that was a no-brainer. I agonize over when I do have a choice. I agonize over them, and some of them are so stupid that it doesn't even bear repeating. It's like stuff with career that only makes sense if you know. It's just show business stuff that no one cares about. I think when I think about what are the big choices in this that I've made, I think it's where it's in my personal life. I think it's maintaining relationships, maintaining friendships, which is hard and
Mhm.
always been hard for me. Um, or like just not hard for me as much as like an insecurity I have. And then where to separate personal from public, which has really been apparent ever since I've had a kid.
Really? Can you talk about that? Because you do kind of have to you have to make decisions, like micro decisions when you have kids about what to share, what not.
It's just a whole new it's a whole new world, if you will. I
Mhm.
didn't grow up in this industry at all. And I
Mhm.
remember as a kid, I would Google myself. We got a computer when I was in 3rd grade. And we got the internet when I was in maybe 4th grade. And
Okay.
I would used to do all my homework assignments on an electric typewriter.
Oh, we had
Yeah.
those. My grandmother was a secretary with the
So was
ball.
mine.
With
So my grandmother
Yep,
was a
with the
sec,
ball.
and she taught me to type. She went to secretarial school, so she taught me how to type on an actual typewriter. She covered the
Mhm.
keys
Yes.
with masking tape and had a diagram on the wall, and it's how I'm still a really fast typer because that's how I learned to type. So I
Okay.
was one of the last people in my class to have a computer and to have internet because we
Mhm.
just I don't know. So I would do a lot of homework on my electric typewriter, and then my mom would proofread it. My mom's a really good speller, and then if I made a mistake, I would have to type the whole thing over. So, well, all that to say, I remember I would Google myself just to see if I came up on the internet at all, and,
Right.
there were only things that came up. There's a woman named Rachel Bloom Baglin who was a rep for AstraZeneca Pharmaceuticals, and then Gloria Allred's actual name is Gloria Rachel Bloom.
Well, that's an interesting Google
Yeah,
search for you to land
it
on.
was fun. So I was used to just not, not having a mark on the internet as a kid. And I think
Right.
that now that I have a kid and I'm somewhat in the public eye, I think it's especially in the past couple years the internet has gone because I started my comedy really on the internet. I mean, I was doing live comedy,
Yes.
but I broke through on the internet, right? And I
Mhm.
when my first video came out, I had to deal with, don't read the comments or whatever, but the internet definitely felt like a safer, kinder place. And now it does
Mhm.
not feel that way. And my husband and I, he's a writer and director.
Mhm.
We've had to make decisions of what do we want for her now, but also once you let something out of the box, you can't put it back in the box. So we're erring on the
Totally.
side of being very, very conservative. I just read this New York Times article about AI with eyes and
Mhm.
how because we have a global entry and global entry it just scans your eyes. But
Yeah.
now if you put someone's eyes into the internet, AI can search all over the internet for other images of those eyes. So I've
Mm.
taken down every picture that I can of my daughter's eyes. It's just I don't want
Wow.
I and look, I'm not like super famous. It's not like anyone's like gunning for my kid, but I want internet presence to be her decision because it's a huge decision. It's not even like it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It has become a hostile, tricky, forever place. And what feels counterintuitive is I'm so used to being so expulsive with my personal life and sharing
Mhm.
everything. It's kind of the way I am as an artist. It's the way it helps me as a person to share, to be an oversharer.
Right.
It's one of the instances where I've started to be like, no, I'm not going to share that for the sake of someone else.
Right. So do you find yourself it's like the little details, like you're having fun somewhere and your daughter's in the photo and you're like, "I just shoulda," and it's just causing you're just having those hesitations and interruptions a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Or if I'm going to post a picture, it's of the back of her head. But I also think it speaks to what's
Right.
happened. Facebook, when social media started, it just used to be for our friends, right? And so, like,
Mhm.
you'd post, yeah, a lot of people would overpost and overshare, but like it was for your friends. Now it's
Right.
almost like everyone has a brand if that
I
makes
know.
sense? Even if they're not in
Yes.
entertainment, it just it's gone from I'm posting this fun vacation picture with my family
Mhm.
to, show my friends from high school to I'm gonna make statements and be part of the discourse, and everyone is now part of the discourse, and,
Right.
um, I think that it's also caused me to question where is a line drawn between the personal and the public, and
Right.
what are boundaries and what is safety, and that's been a general choice in my life because I'm such a people pleaser, so I'm
Okay.
bad at setting my own boundaries with people. And it's something that
Mhm.
I've lately become am working on getting better at. That
It
because I so wanna give I don't want anyone to dislike me.
Right. I don't see how it's possible for anyone to
Oh,
dislike
I
you,
mean,
but oh no.
yeah, it's always possible.
Everything's possible. No, my I guess my it is also complicated when you're in this business because it's not even that in some ways you don't have a choice but to overshare now. Like oversharing is expected of you as a performer. And when you don't, it's a kind of a hindrance to your work. That's what I'm
Yeah,
finding is that oversharers are extremely rewarded in this industry. And
yeah.
when you don't want your children to be a feature player in your life or in your work life, I understand exactly what you're let me tell a little story from my own
Please,
life is
please.
that when I had my first child, burgeoning burgeoning internet, she was born in 2006.
Oh, what a beautiful time.
It was a beautiful time. It was a beautiful time. There were fewer Nazis making
Yes.
themselves known on the internet and proudly stating their positions. I will say that. They were hiding. They still felt that sense of shame that protects
Oh,
us
remember that?
from them. Remember that? And I put, I was on, I had some Facebook account and I put my daughter on. It wasn't like a really public profile, and it was very small because it was like I was in a very niche level place. And someone on the internet, a bunch of people actually, took the image of her face and made her face their avatars
Ah!
on message boards. My baby's face.
Whoa.
And I fucking flipped. I was like, I'm off Facebook forever. We're done. We're done here. I'm shutting it down because, like yourself, I felt like this is a choice for her. This is a choice for them to make later when they can, when they're able to make it. And it's kind of complicated. It's really
Yeah,
hard.
and I don't think you have to even be in the industry or whatever for this to be complicated because now your bosses can Google you, they can look at your social media.
Hmm.
Everything on the internet is basically forever,
Hmm.
and there's so little nuance when it's written and it feels like stone on an
Yeah.
Instagram post or a tweet or whatever. And I feel like internet literacy should now be a mandatory course for
Oh.
everyone, myself included. I would take it. I just feel, and I'm very sensitive, so I have felt that shift in the
Hmm.
past few years where the internet was felt it was never totally safe, but there was, it was a way for people to connect. And now
Hmm.
is everything you say is forever, and I don't know, there's just a hostility that you don't get when you talk to people actually in person.
Right. Yes. Yes. And there's an ownership over you that takes place now. People feel like they own like a piece. They know if
Yeah.
they know your story, they're like, "Oh, we're friends. We're basically friends. We know each other, and therefore I get to say, I'm going to chime in on your choices or your
Yeah,
it's
the parasocial relationship, right? And I feel like I have that
yeah,
sometimes with, I don't know, people I admire, and then I'm like, I don't know this person. They could be
right,
completely
right.
different. And So I don't know, that is becoming an ongoing series of choices for me of what to put out into the world and what to
Right.
keep if you are just a close friend of mine, and it's a
Right.
really imperfect science.
Right. Right. Actually, I wanted to talk about because I feel like it was the video. It was "Fuck Me Ray Bradbury," right?
Twas.
That was your like breakout video. I guess how did you know to put your stuff on YouTube? Or like what was the thought process going into that? Were you like, I'm performing comedy, I'm gonna film because they're filmed really well. Your videos are great.
Thank you. Other people around me were doing it. It's a very simple, uh, answer. I was doing comedy and I saw people around
Hmm.
me, uh, filming what they wrote and putting it on the internet, my then boyfriend, now husband included.
Hmm.
And 2010 was this interesting transition, 2010, 2011 transition from the aesthetic of early Funny or Die, which was, started by I think The Landlord in 2006, right? Which was very
Right.
lo-fi. And so there was this like lo-fi comedy to making it look better. And I think that's because they released, I don't know, the Canon 5D or Canon 7D or whatever,
Right.
where anyone could suddenly make something look cinematic. And so there were people around me who were doing this. And I thought, oh, what a great way to uh, make a kind of comedy mark for yourself in conjunction with live material.
When you were doing live comedy, were you always doing musical comedy or were you doing like sketch with some music? Like what was your live performance like? Is it similar to what you're doing in the live show now?
No, so it evolved. I got to NYU, I was a musical theater major, and
Hmm.
I had been on an improv group in high school. And I right away kind of felt a little out of place in a musical theater program for many reasons. And I saw there were auditions for this sketch comedy group. So I auditioned and I got on and I instantly fell in love with sketch comedy.
Right.
Partially because my whole life I'd put so much pressure on myself to be perfect when it came to musical theater, which sounds so dorky, but people in the musical theater world will know what I'm talking about. That with
Right.
musical theater, the culture of musical theater, your talent is very synonymous with your self-worth, right?
Right.
Sketch comedy, I'd never said to myself I was going to be a comedian. So for the first time in my life, and this was when the writing aspect of things, I tried my hardest at something without a real fear of failure because I didn't have my self-worth wrapped up in it. And I just fell in love with the order of writing sketch comedy. I learned a very kind of not mathematical, but there was a structure I learned that came from
Hmm.
UCB that had been funneled down to my sketch group. And so I started to write sketches. They were very cerebral, I would say, my style of writing. And a thing that really affected me was when I was a sophomore, I was set to become the director of my college sketch group. I got involved in a love triangle with older guys on the sketch group. It was really bad and they behaved really immaturely. We all did, but they removed me as director from my college sketch group as like punishment.
uh,
Yeah.
rude.
So I kind of was like, oh, my mentors have basically turned against me,
Right.
but I still love sketch comedy, but I want to make it my own. There was a part of me before that I think that was trying to write stuff that would impress them. And simultaneously, I took a musical theater writing class over the summer at NYU my junior year. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I started to combine them. And what I'll say about combining the two is because music and musical theater had always been part of my love and aesthetic, is it
Hmm.
got me out of my head in a way. It got me to write more intuitively and more surprisingly than I had with just plain sketch comedy. So early on, after I graduated, I started incorporating music also because no one around me was doing it. So it felt
Right.
very, oh, this is a thing that I can, as an artist, you're always looking for what's a thing that I can say about the world that no one else is saying. And
Hmm.
at the time, very few people around me were doing the musical stuff.
Want to listen to the rest of this episode? Head over to your favorite podcast player to hear the entire show. I highly recommend it.